All right, welcome everybody to Rotary After Hours. I'm excited to see all of you here tonight. I was gonna say, help yourself to food, drinks, and all that during the meeting. So I'm gonna stop you for a minute. If everyone can stand up and then the pledge of allegiance. To the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What?
Great. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. It will be on YouTube after our meeting. Another announcement just for those that might be speaking tonight, make sure you come up and stand up here. We have an owl so that those who are joining us online are able to hear and see who are speaking. And then Sierra, are you ready to do visitors and guests?
All right, we have quite a few guests tonight, so I'll have you say where you work, and then we're gonna have you say what your favorite Disney princess is, or who your favorite Disney princess is. So we'll start with Jenny. Jenny, no, she's getting. Oh, okay, we'll come back to Jenny. Rick.
Rick Kyte, Turbo University, Snow White.
Yeah.
Dave, Rick. Alicia.
I'm Alicia. I work at Aviana. Oh, it's okay. Aviana Home Health. I'm a schedule worker for them, and my favorite princess is.
Thank you. Lucas.
Lucas. I guess my favorite is
Thank you. Keith.
Hi, I'm Keith. I work at Western College. Very jealous.
I would say, Keith, do you want to introduce your other
Sure.
guests?
This is my son, David. Some of you have met him. He's my brother, Addis. We're here with Lawrence.
Former Rotary After Hours is Mari's current host dad. So welcome.
Back to Jenny. And yes, welcome.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, Eileen, is there anyone online?
Yes. We've got Dean, Nathan, and Laura online.
All right, we shared this at our last meeting, but I just wanted to make sure that you know we have 2 new members, plus Addie, who joined our club. So we're at 54 active members, and Olga and Dean were both added as new members in our March board meeting. So we find that yes. So we have some anniversaries. Our club was founded 12 years ago in March, so we have quite a few people that have been with our club for 12 years. We have Lori, Danny, Aaron, Ryan, Justin, Johnny, and Shane. Many of them are here tonight. Some are sitting over here. Aaron. So We're glad you guys started our club many years ago. And then 9 years, Ben Addington, 7 years, Marissa Dickinson, also 7 years, Dustin Mickey, and then Brianna has been with us for 4 years. Birthdays this month, we had Rotary After Hours Flash birthday on March 2nd. March 10th was Kristen Swartz, March 20th was Lori Francis, and later this month, we have Colin Wood's birthday. So, happy birthday. Youth committee update, Lisa.
So I'm the youth exchange officer for Rotary Youth Exchange for our club. And one of the things that our students have the opportunity to do is to go on various trips to see the United States. So you want to tell us what trips you're going on?
New York, Philadelphia, and Washington DC. Did one trip in Western Coast trip. I will go.
Do you want to know all the places on the West Coast you're going to go? So start in LA, all of California, maybe part of Nevada, Grand Canyon, Disneyland, go back to LA. So like West Coast, it really is a lot of the West Coast.
So you're gonna be gone for 3 months?
Yeah, that's all done in 2 weeks. Yes, it is quite the whirlwind trip. So one of the things that we do in the La Crosse area is a fundraiser for our students to help pay for these trips. So it's a cultural celebration. You may have heard of it. We do it in end of November, beginning of December, where all of the students in the La Crosse area make food and get to talk about the country where they're from. So it's really a cool opportunity to kind of learn about the students in the La Crosse area. It's a fundraiser. We now know how much money each student is going to be getting to put towards their trips. So I have a check to give to Mari for $750 to go towards her trip. Okay, so that's it for that. Thank you. Thank you. I guess I have 2 other things. One, Mari is hoping to participate in graduation at Central, and I have a baby cap and gown that she could wear, but it might be a little big for her. So if anybody has a cap and gown that she could borrow for graduation, that would be awesome. Is it red?
Yeah,
or
they have
black?
specific colors.
I think it's black. I think it's just black, yeah. So if you have a black cap and gown that would fit her, because the one that we have, I think is gonna be like way too long. So if you have something that would fit her, please let me or let Mari know so that she can participate in that and look. Okay, the last thing that I have related to youth, we know who our student for next year is going to be. We are going to have a girl from Denmark, and we may or may not have a host family. I'm not sure yet, but either way, we will still need additional host families. So if you or anyone you know, it does not have to be a Rotarian, anybody who would be interested in hosting a high school junior, senior from Denmark, female, please let me know so we can start the process of getting those host families approved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
When does that start?
When would this student start? Sometime in August. No, just for 3 months, about 3 months. So the exact time is like determined between those families. And their arrival date, would it be like if you had something like you wanted them to be here for, or that could be arranged, their arrival date is not been announced. Thank you. Thank you.
So host families are about 3 months. I was gonna say Larry, Keith, Brandon, that's it, have all been host families in our club. So they are great people to ask if you have questions, but it's just kind of providing room for them to stay in. I don't think they even have to have their own room. They can share with a child if they're the same gender, and then, food and some activities, but our club also tries to help fill their time. They're very busy in sports and with friends typically, so it's a really great experience. Thanks. All right, service and social announcements. Do you wanna?
Great. Just so people are aware, I'm thinking of moving service committee meetings to after our club meeting because it's really hard to get anything done beforehand. We have some stuff coming up. April 20th, highway cleanup at 5:30, and then a social afterwards at 6:30 across the street at the restaurant, Fox Hollow. Thank you. It's a family-friendly event, so feel free to bring children and dogs. April 22nd, just 2 days later, we have Habitat for Humanity neighborhood cleanup from 9 to 3. You do not have to stay for 6 hours, just so you are aware. And it is another family-friendly event to bring children to, and so on. And then after that, May 6th, we have the Cooley Region Humane Society, where you can play with dogs and cats and walk them and feed them and do different things. And then there will be some engagement with the people that work there to learn stuff about what they do as well. Unfortunately, that is limited to only 10 people, so it's first come, first served. So please pay attention to when the calendar comes up and the registration comes up. And then May 15th, again, will be Monday meals at Trinity. We are looking for a couple people that are excited. I know one person who's excited to cook, another person maybe. And then that is also a family-friendly event, and it's so awesome when children are there. And then we are working on another thing that is a secret for right now. So keep your eyes peeled.
Thank you, Phil. Sierra, do you want to do the Tricon Pints for Polio?
Yes. So Tricon Pints Portfolio on the 29th. It's gonna be a super fun event. We have 8 bars, Big Al's, The Crow, Christos, other ones, I'm not gonna list them all. $40 to attend. You get 3 drinks at those bars, and then it ends at Big Al's. There's a prize shrine, super fun, Rotarians from all over the Midwest. So please sign up for that. The sign up is on the registration for Tricon, so you don't have to register for Tricon or register for Pints Portfolio. You can do it separate. But it should be really fun. Everyone should come because it's gonna be the cutest passport you've ever gotten. So it's gonna be great.
Do you need volunteers for that?
Yes, and we need volunteers. Thank you. We need volunteers for that. So we need 2 people at each bar. You literally just sit there, hang out, and tell people what Rotary is and answer any questions that anyone has. Big Al's will be the only bar that's actually selling the passports that night. So you will just hang out and drink beer. You can buy your passport and just get them all in that one. So I will sign up about that sometime this week. So please sign up for that. It's super easy. Like you literally don't have to do anything except sit there. So please sign up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then our club also has Pints for Polio. They're kind of back to back, but I guess if you like beer, that's great. So this Thursday, March 30th at Big Al's, their side room. You do need to sign up by the end of the day tomorrow. It's $30 per person, and then if you don't want to drink beer, it's $15 per person. So the $30 includes 4 tastings, a pint, and then pizza. The $15 one is just root beer or soda or whatever you want, and then alcoholic with pizza, and you can buy drinks as well. So you go on our website, on the Rotary After Hours website. If you have a calendar, you can sign up for all these events and find information. I just wanted to share a couple of different upcoming Rotary events in the area. So we have the Rotary Leadership Series with Janine Lattice, who speaks, I believe, on sexual assault and domestic violence. She's doing another presentation here, but Downtown Rotary will have them at their meeting April 6th at noon. I think that's next Thursday. You can either go to their meeting or join on Zoom. There's a grant management seminar on April 14th. District Tricon is April 27th through the 29th. So like Sarah said, there's different activities throughout that weekend. You can sign up. You can register just to attend the conference as well. There's a lot of great speakers, so. RILA, the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards is coming up as well. In May, it's a weekend. They are looking for counselors still, I believe. I don't know, Laura, if you have anything else to add to that. Not to put you on the spot. She can come back. And then the international conferences in Australia. Did you have something, Bill?
We have not heard anything organized from the lacrosse area.
Okay, sounds good. If you're interested in any of those opportunities, feel free to reach out to me if you need more information. For RILA, you can reach out to Laura or myself and we can get you. Some other Rotary Club events coming up. So the Holman Area Rotary has their service auction at the beginning of May 5th. That's a fun event. We usually have a table at that, so more to come. The Onalaska Hilltop Rotary has their Pork Queue as well in May. And then there's a couple events coming up this summer as well. If you are new, so if you've been in our club for less than a year, they put on this new Rotary orientation. It's 1 hour on Zoom, the 5th Wednesday of the month. So March 29th, either join at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. This is new. It's just kind of the nuts and bolts of Rotary, not necessarily specific to lacrosse, but just Rotary in general and how things work. So if you're interested in attending, I think I sent out an email to most of the Rotarians that are new, but you can reach out to me and I can get you that information as well. Friendship exchange, there is one going to Croatia in September, and then there's also some posts needed for the summer for friendship exchange Rotarians that are coming here from Chile, Poland, and India. I've only seen the dates for the Poland group, which is in July. But if you have any interest in that, reach out to me. I can connect you. Bill, do you want to make an announcement for the post you're looking for this summer, or?
For those who've been Rotarians a few years ago, we had a remarkable young lady join us in the fall, who never spoke a bit of English and literally hid in the back of a Rotarian's car over and over again until they found her 3 days later and said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I want to come to the United States," and that group of Rotarians made it happen. And so she joined us in the United States for 1 full year. She's now attending school at the University of Platteville. We're taking care of that for her. And we got her a summer internship at a training company here in town. And so she's looking for a place to stay during her internship. We have one family already lined up. The Rotary president of the lacrosse club, I'll get that right, is hosting her, but we'd be welcoming other people that would be interested in hosting a remarkable little dynamo. So if you would like to have her join you in your house for a period of time while she's doing her internship, let me know and I'll be happy to hook you.
Thanks, Bill. Just some updates, reminders. So we last week, our board approved hosting, I guess, or sponsoring a Global Scholar. So this is something new. We have not done this before. So that we're hoping that she can speak to her club before she leaves for school. But her name is Tierney Hall. She's quite impressive. She is pursuing a master's in philosophy and international relations at the University of Oxford, but she's done a lot of work when she was going to school in Madison with refugees, COVID, and TB. So it will be an interesting and exciting journey for us that is new. So more to come on that. And then our board also approved a $250 donation to the Changemakers Rotary. So that's a new Rotary club in our district who is meeting just online. They were raising money for the Family Health Clinica for blood glucose monitors and supplies. So we made a small donation to them to help them see how their news was good and fit well with the Rotary pillars. So, and then just a reminder, emails went out last week to those that were nominated for our 2020 3/24 board. So if you have not responded yet to that email, please do so by Friday with either accepting or declining your nomination.
Good question, is our club, one of the sponsors for the goals?
Yeah.
Global Power?
Yeah.
Well, that is really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it just happened last week. So it's
That
very,
is really cool.
yes. All right, any other announcements? I was asked to share, Terry Bauer, who is the director of the Downtown Main Street, is participating in the LSO conductor wannabe, and he is raising money for the dignity homes. So if you're interested, there is a flyer up here. I know there's a lot of other people in the community that are participating in that. So if you have any interest in supporting the Lacrosse Symphony Orchestra and another organization, I encourage you to look at the LSO website. Yes, Bill.
Yes.
Sorry.
If you have time this Saturday afternoon at 1:30, Nathan and I are playing in a concert at the Black River Falls Community Center. So come and enjoy it. It's a Star Wars, Star Trek, it's a whole space theme, Mars, and so on. So come enjoy it. It's free. Black River. Beach. Yes, thank you.
Not Black River.
Meet you there after the concert.
All right, sorry, guys. So tonight we have Rick Kyte here. He's the director of the D.V. Reinhardt Institute for Ethics and Leadership and endowed professor of ethics at Viterbo University. Where he teaches a variety of courses dealing with ethical issues in business, healthcare, law, politics, and the environment. He has published and lectured widely on topics related to justice, forgiveness, virtue, and the meaning of life. So I am going to pass it over, otherwise I can put it into my presentation.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry.
see,
about that.
there's different variety of options.
Let me see. Sorry, guys, if you want to get food, feel free.
Or another beer. Or water. Everyone is.
Look at you guys. Thank you.
Oh, here you go. Let's try this. Oh, awesome. Here you go.
Okay.
You might want to move it.
Right.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate being asked to speak here. This is my favorite topic, and I've been talking to a number of groups about this, so I've been giving different versions of a similar presentation about like
what we can do to make the world better. And one of the reasons I'm passionate about it is because so many people think the world is getting worse. And it's really kind of, I would say, one of the ironies I want to discuss.
So it's gonna be should be.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. One of the ironies is this. The better the living conditions are in a country, the worse people think the world is. And that's nothing. Why is it that in the United States, 6% of the people think the world is getting better? In China, 41% of the people think the world is getting better. That's an odd thing. But what we'll find is that it's also correlated with how people are feeling subjectively. It's not so much a matter of what evidence people are looking at. It's a matter of how they feel about their lives. That's what's being reflected here. And we get it expressed in many different ways. So this is a tweet that went out last month by a Washington Times reporter that got millions of retweets, and a lot of attention in the media. Taylor Lorenz saying, why are people talking about why are kids so depressed? It must be their phones. But never to mention the fact that we're living in a late-stage capitalist hellscape during an ongoing deadly pandemic with record wealth inequality, zero social safety net, job security, as climate change cooks the world. And here's the thing, a lot of people identify with that. And I'm going to argue that that's kind of a dumb thing to say, but it's also perfectly understandable because it's expressive of an attitude about what's going on, and there's reasons for that attitude, but it has little bearing to the facts, and that's one reason why, like, you can have evidence against this, arguing against it, that doesn't affect the attitude at all. But this is especially resonant with people right now in their 20s and 30s. People of Dean Dickinson's generation are more likely to express it in this kind of way. Once upon a time, a family could own a home, a car, and send their kids to college all in one income. And that's equally stupid. It's nostalgic. It's also understandable. All of us we look back at the time when we were children. There's a kind of magic to the time when we were children because the world is new and it's kind of and we're developing and exploring, and so that there's a kind of natural nostalgia that every single generation feels. And we even, like, when we become parents, we look at our own kids and we think, oh, it's really too bad that my kids can't grow up with Hot Wheels cars. All they've got these stupid Pokemon characters. And now my kids are in their 20s and 30s and they're thinking Pokemon is just the greatest, and you have all this nostalgia for it. I mean, this is just natural, right? But this idea that things were so much better, say in the 60s, is not right either. The problem with the expression of these kinds of ideas, which we find expressed all around us, is that it's one of the things that's led to increasing distrust of institutions. And we find that this distrust has grown over the last 50 years. It's been a pretty steady decline. It goes up and down depending on what happens. So when you get the protests on campuses and the January 6th riots and things like that, trust goes down. That it might go up a little bit later if something else happens, but it's pretty much been going down steadily. And yet this is the longest we've been measuring it. We don't know if distrust was increasing, 80 or 90 years ago. It maybe was. We don't know. But here's why, if we just look at the United States, why talk about how things were so much better in the 60s? Why it's just not right. If you really look back and like, well, what about, could families really have a car and a house and send their kids to college all in one income? Well, yeah, a lot of people had houses, but they weren't very good. Nobody had dishwashers, for example. When I was a kid, I remember one of my earliest memories is going to visit my grandparents and my sister and I taking a bath in a wash tub outside the house because they didn't have indoor plumbing, right? And so you had fires all of the time. homes. And that was a regular occurrence. I mean, our firefighters in our communities do a lot of things now, but they don't actually put out a lot of fires. That's not the main thing that they do because homes are much safer. And we have something like 800 cars per 1,000 people in the United States today. Back in 1960, we had about 400 cars per 1,000 people, and they weren't very good. When I went to college, people were driving things like Pontiac Fiero, listening to Daryl Hall and John Oates on their 8-track tapes. I mean, it was a really horrendous time going to college. So, and we're much better educated. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we're lead the world in so much innovation, creative development, and technology and so forth. Is that we have a really highly educated population. And that's changed a lot. If you look at the figure there in 1960, about 7.3% of males, 5% of females had a college degree. And we've increased that every single decade. Of course, it's gotten a lot more expensive too, but there's a lot of education. Okay. So those are good things just in the United States. And then if you look at worldwide, what has happened, we find huge increases in all the ways in which we want to measure whether life is getting better or worse. And the major one is this, like we've had huge reductions in extreme poverty. So in 1950, you have about 70% of the world living in extreme poverty. That's not people not knowing where their next meal is coming from, or maybe haven't eaten in the past few days. And that's now under 10%. And this is an extraordinary achievement. And it's, I mean, this has led to a lot of other improvements. If you look at something like polio, which Rotary could rightly take a lot of credit for and a lot of pride in, it's practically eliminated from the world. And we're very close to eliminating it. But you could look at 20 or 30 different really serious diseases, and you would see similar trajectories. That when in the world right now, if we put our mind to it, we're capable of saying, okay, this is a really serious problem. How do we bring to bear our scientific knowledge, our technical expertise, and then our knowledge about how to bring people together, different kinds of organizations to collaborate effectively. And what I want you to keep in mind is this is all institutional work. This isn't because of individual heroes. This is because of the ways in which institutions work. Universities, governments, research bodies, non-governmental agencies, and large corporations are all working together really effectively to solve all kinds of problems. And what's happened is the world is getting better and better as a result. This is deaths from warfare, both conflicts between states and civil conflicts. And what we find is that since World War II, we've been experiencing pretty much the longest period of sustained peace that the world's ever known. And that doesn't mean we don't have conflicts, but we don't have the kinds of conflicts that the world used to see on a regular basis. And so, I mean, we rightly pay attention to when there's a serious war that's causing a lot of human suffering in Ukraine. And yet, one of the reasons we pay so much attention to it is because it's pretty exceptional right now at this point in our history. And so we've got to realize that. What a lot of this means is that the life expectancy has been increasing and increasing steadily. So if you look at the history of the world prior to 1900, depending on where you lived in the world, life expectancy was somewhere between 25 and 35 years of age. And that's the way it's always been for human beings. And because of the Enlightenment, that is, if you put together the scientific revolution, technological developments that came as a result of that, capitalism as an economic system which increases wealth globally, and then democratic government which increases kind of the innovation and ability of people to collaborate, join voluntary associations to bring their energy, put those things all together. And we've had a steady increase in life expectancy over the last 100 years. Now, there's still discrepancies in that, and we have periods of time where life expectancy will drop. We're experiencing that in the United States right now. Over the last 3 years, we've had a drop in life expectancy, but the historical trend is that it's going to correct, and we're going to keep going up. Child mortality has dropped considerably. If you look at prior to 1900, 35 to 40% of children died before the age of 5. This is kind of the way it's always been. This is why there are like biblical passages that will talk about celebrating a child's meaning, right? Because you wouldn't want to have a community celebration of a child that you didn't even know was going to survive because so few did. And so we wouldn't even think of that now. We're going to celebrate children as soon as they're born because the norm is, the expectation is that they're going to survive. So these improvements in the quality of life have been so radical that it's changed our very expectations of what constitutes a good life. Advances in literacy have been dramatic. If you look at since 1950, we go from about kind of 40–45% illiteracy down to about 10%. Most of that advance since that period of time has been in gains in women's literacy from the development of schools in many developing nations. So those are all kind of objective measures. And if you look at a website like Our World in Data, you can find all kinds of reports of that are visually represented the way I'm showing you, kind of put together all the ways the world has changed. And so all these kind of objective measures, where you say, well, what affects our quality of life? What are the things we focus on and put our attention to try to improve? All those things we have improved. What's getting worse? What's getting worse is pretty much just our subjective feelings. Our subjective feelings are getting worse. And so, we actually don't have a lot of data on this because we only started studying it recently, because this is a developed nation problem. So anxiety has been increasing. We've only been studying it systematically since 1990. Words like burnout didn't even get invented until about 1980, and now they've been increasing. Like in the medical journals, there's all kinds of studies of burnout. If you look at like data like this, you see that anxiety, also anxiety is highly associated with depression and stress. They all three go together. Women are more affected than men by anxiety, but what we find even stronger is people in developed nations are much more affected than relatively undeveloped nations. And so the question is, why is that? And then why is it that in the places where we are doing the best objectively, we're feeling worse about it? And this, I think this is partly a loss of perspective. One of the things that happens when our expectations change, then what we regard as good news and bad news changes that scale. And so we can have things that are maybe not that bad that seem really bad to us because of the way we report the news. And I think there is part of that. Our news tends to report bad things more than good things, right? So that's part of what is going on. But there's some other things too. In these next couple slides, I want to show you come from Dr. Ahmed Sood, who was a neuroscientist who was working at Mayo Clinic in Rochester. He was a visiting scholar for us at the Reinhardt Institute 4 years ago. And it was fascinating to spend time with him because he was really studying what was causing burnout among healthcare professionals, and trying to figure out if there's something they could do at Mayo to help nurses address burnout, because so many nurses were leaving in the first 5 years. And that's, That's a serious problem, but we find it really among all the kind of the helping professions. His thought as to why that was happening is that we've had such an increase in the growth of technology that the world is changing really rapidly. And when the world is changing rapidly, you have to be continually adjusting. And yet when we study the brain, we find out that the brain doesn't change very quickly. And actually, much of our brains are is something that like we can make adjustments through our lifetime, but we also inherit kind of all kinds of instincts and things that come to us that we're just born with. That are pretty much the same as our ancestors who were living in the oak savannas 2,000 years ago. And that's why there's several people in this room who would like be afraid if a spider or a snake appeared on your table right now. And yet, like, nobody runs away when they see a chocolate covered donut. Right? Yet the donuts kill a lot more people than spiders and snakes. So, like, you probably don't know anybody who's been killed by a spider and snake, but you've never screamed when you saw a donut, right? So, but then think about like all the ways in which our instinctual responses to the things that happen in the world are not a good guide to getting through the day, right? And all the ways in which we have to intentionally compensate and think and pay attention to what we're doing. I mean, there's nothing about our history that has prepared us for driving 80 miles an hour on an interstate, right? And you'll find, I mean, you can be in a fairly nice car, listening to nice music and driving. If you drive for 8 hours on an interstate, you are exhausted at the end of it, even though like you look at your watch, no, I've taken 200 steps, right? It's stressful, right? Living in the world right now it should be very stressful, but so the speed at which changes are coming at us is hard. But how do we deal with that? I mean, what are the ways in which human beings have learned to deal with change? Well, the way historically that individuals deal with change is through their social connections, through conversations, to talking to other people. And yet what do we find? In the most developed nations that are most technologically advanced, we spend less and less time with other people. And so the very things that's causing more stress keeps us from doing the things that relieve the stress. So we become more productive, more efficient, better at solving all kinds of problems, which are really serious problems that need to be solved, that we feel worse and worse about it as we go through. I'm just going to show you a couple slides here. I've looked at dozens and dozens of word pairs on the Google Ngram, which just is a measure of the frequency of word use as Google has been digitizing the libraries. But we find like words like goodness, we just use a word like that less and less and less, but we use a word like efficiency a lot. Well, if you think about like, what do we focus on in our organizations? We focus a lot on efficiency, but we don't focus a lot on goodness, right? Which like is understandable in one respect, but that makes it harder for us as far as how we feel about living and working within the organization. And then if you look at this, like self and friend, it's like we talk about self a lot more than we talk about friend. Well, this again is very understandable. One of the things technology does is it makes us less dependent on other people. I mean, it's easier for us to do more things on our own schedule in our own way. And we aren't as reliant on others. Just take something like as simple as like you go to work and you can, get in your car, drive home, use a button to open your garage door, drive into your garage, walk from your garage straight into your house, never talk to a neighbor, right? And then if you're thinking like, what am I gonna do this evening? There's all kinds of shows on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu that are really entertaining. I've got a whole list that I haven't even gotten to yet. I'm like, there's no reason to join like a group of people that are playing cards every Tuesday night, right? Because like they're not nearly as interesting as like the latest Netflix series, so I might as well do that. But then what happens as a result? Well, you're very entertained. I mean, there's lots of diversions, there's lots of things to do, and it's really convenient. And yet you don't have the opportunities for relieving the kinds of stress, for processing what's going on in your life. In fact, you're kind of putting that out of your mind, but it's still in there, right? And you're pushing it aside instead of dealing with it in ways that can humanly prove to actually be very productive. So the question of what we can do is because we now live in a world in which it's much easier for us to be fairly independent, self-focused, and in some ways also very productive. We have to intentionally do the things that used to result from our mutual dependency. It used to be that we really were dependent on our neighbors and friends and families and things just to survive. We're not to nearly the same extent, but those things also were very good for us psychologically. And so what we have to do is intentionally bring that back into our lives. And when we do that, we build social capital. So when we become very engaged in our communities, when we become more engaged with our neighbors, our communities, through things like groups like this, where we're interacting with fellow citizens on a regular basis, what happens is we psychologically benefit, but we also build up these reservoirs of One of the things that we find looking at friendship is like people of my generation tend to report that we have maybe 3 to 4 friends on average across the country. Generation before me, people who are in their like late 70s and 80s, they'll report that they have 4 to 5 friends typically. People who are in their 20s and 30s, maybe 2 to 2, sometimes 3. People in their teens, generally about 1 right now. Now, when you first hear that, you might think, well, that's because as you go through life, you make more and more friends. Actually, that's not the case. Like people in their 80s who are saying like they have about 5 friends, like, well, if they haven't all started dying. Like other than that, like that's what they've had through almost. That's what they had in their 40s. That's what they had in their 30s. That's what they had in their 20s. That's what they said all the way along. And this, one of the reasons this is really worrisome. Well, what happens with the people in their 20s who have 1 friend or 2 friends? That's all they have all the way along. Okay? And this is why social capital is so important, because it's that the social connection, which we're not doing as much of, turns out to be vitally important, both psychologically for the individual and families. And I'll just show you, like, so you go on the Joint Economic Committee website, look at social capital index. You can click in any county in the U.S. and see where it scores in social capital. What we find is generally the Midwest is doing better than much of the nation. Wisconsin does pretty well. Western Wisconsin does better than Eastern Wisconsin. So we happen to be living in an area with some of the highest social capital in the nation. So we're in a really good place for that. But we're also living at a time where we have to work on it intentionally, because everything about our culture makes it less natural. These slides didn't come through. I'll tell you what they said. States with high social capital, children are doing much better in those states. States with low social capital, children are doing much worse. It's a very strong correlation. There's a real strong correlation between educational performance and social capital. States where people are highly engaged, where people join clubs like this, where they vote regularly, they volunteer a lot, they talk to their neighbors. Those states tend to have pretty good educational outcomes. States where they don't interact and aren't engaged, they have low educational outcomes. And that's much more important than all the things that Democrats and Republicans always fight about, pass laws about. Like all the things about class size and testing and all those things. All the educational reform stuff doesn't matter as much as engagement in your community. You're more likely to get murdered in a state with low social capital, so don't move to one. And tax evasion. Like people tend to pay their taxes better in states with high social capital, which makes sense because they also see better returns from those taxes. They get spent better, there's less food. Except for North Dakota, which has very high social capital and a lot of tax free. I don't know why, except that I have relatives. So, so what researchers have found is there's really two types of social capital. There's bridging capital. Bridging capital is the ability to make good things happen institutionally. So what you do is you bridge across distances among various people that don't necessarily know each other, but are willing to work together. So something like reduction of polio, that happens because of bridging capital. We'll have people from lacrosse going to India or Pakistan to give polio vaccines, working with other kinds of rural health organization or the Gates Foundation or other Rotary clubs there. That's bridging capital. And what we find is bridging capital functions as long as you have bonding capital as a foundation. And bonding capital is friendship. Friendship is kind of the glue that makes bridging capital possible. And that's why joining organizations like this, where you actually meet people on a regular basis and form friendships, you get to know one another, it pays big dividends, not just for you psychologically, it pays big dividends for the community, right? Because it means that everybody who does this kind of work, participating, when you come, you don't necessarily know a lot of the people that are here, but you get to know them over time. And what happens is, maybe it's subconscious, but you're much more likely to say, oh, we have a chance to collaborate, say with this Rotary Club in Peru. They're probably just like us, right? Because they're doing the same sort of thing over there. They're making friends there. You're much more likely to give strangers the benefit of it. So this is how bonding capital is. So never underestimate how important the social type of events are for organizations like this. And also, when you think of like, is it important to promote Rotary or not? It's really important. And it's really important because we have all these cultural pressures to separate, to disconnect. One of the big trends in business right now is frictionless experience, try to get you in the door and out the door without ever talking to another person. Like, this is really bad for us. It's convenient, it's easy. I can go to festival and buy ice cream without talking to anybody and get in and out quickly. That's really bad for me. I shouldn't do it, right? But here's the thing, that we're not going to change the technology. Technology is going to continue to make us more independent, make things easier for us. What we have to do then is intentionally find ways of creating more friction. We have to intentionally find ways of increasing the opportunities we have for social connection. And this is going to be a big challenge, especially for encouraging young people to find ways of intentionally seeking out opportunities for it. So thank you very much. Do we have time for a question or two, or are we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the big challenge we face, because it's, committing to things is really hard. And lots of times you don't see the payoff until after you've done it. So talking somebody into doing something that seems like a foreign experience where they can't see the benefit, that's a hard thing to do. What we're finding among young people, like high school students or college students, is they're really great at volunteering. They really believe in the benefits of volunteering and so forth, but they don't like to join. Well, the payoff is in the joining. And I'm not sure that we've even made that message really. Like, we've talked a lot, I know my university is under the importance of out service, but not the importance of joining. The joining is where the joining is what actually benefits communities the most. And I think we need to change that message a bit so people are hearing it more consistently. Because I think it's in some ways kind of a strange. By the way, it turns out like the best predictor, this is some research from somebody named RAH, who's working with a team of others doing research on social capital. The best predictor of a child moving up in economic mobility is the friending bias of the community in which they live. And they're measuring friending bias, like how easy is it to make friends in your neighborhood? Neighborhoods where it's really easy to make friends, that is where there's a lot of social interaction. Those children, if they grow up, if they're economically disadvantaged, on average, they improve their position in life quite a bit. There's people that might go to better schools or even come from families with better income that grow up in communities in which people do not interact very much. They are much less likely to do well. And this is, in some ways, really, this is not how we design our policy. This is not the kind of message we're starting to get more and more evidence for that social connection might be the main thing that is really central to our young people having a better life.
Have you found in your study that there's a fear of building relationships because of the unexpected, because of having the social media shoved in everybody's faces with the perfect picture and the perfect life? So how dare I even fail at building a relationship?
I think there's something about that kind of the expectations, the social expectations and the uncertainty of that kind of interaction. But there's also something just about the habit of doing. And so one of the things is that our children are growing up without being kind of forced into these situations by their parents as much. And developing a comfort level in interacting with strangers, that takes a while. It's a hard thing to do. This is an accomplishment. It's not a default for humans. And so we have to push it much more.
Emotional intelligence.
It all results from that rigor practice.
Dr. Kyte, on behalf of our club, I'd like to thank you for presenting tonight. The news is pretty grim. My wife and 9-year-old daughter were catching the news the other night because we knew about a heartwarming Rotary story that's going to be on. But it was like concept after concept of like shootings and tornadoes and just like, okay, we gotta turn it up. So we'll talk to Dustin Lupe about that. See if he can do. He's a member in our club.
Tell him to read the paper.
But also your message tonight is wonderful. What we're doing here and what a lot of people are doing is coming together and building that social capital. And so thank you for bringing that message tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was great. Sorry, guys. Here's the slides.
So we don't look at it and we have one. So just a few things. I know we're gonna go a few minutes over. I'm sorry for that. But we have our next meeting. It will be here April 11th. It'll be the Rotary Lights check presentation. So organizations from the community that will be receiving money from Rotary Lights will be joining us. I will not be here, so Erin will be in charge. Sorry, guys. I am going to, we purchased 2 books of rigs, the Intervals of Hesitation, and we have all of your names in here. So I don't know who wants to come pick names, Ryan. We added the people that are online too.
Amy F. And Alicia.
Awesome.
Grab Ricky for you.
I did, Simon, somebody else wanted down.
Slideshow, tap.
All right, so we will end the evening with our 5 resets. So if everyone wants to join me in stand. All the things we think, say, or do.
They're all concerned. We'll be better if we're all concerned.
All right, and then I don't think there are actually any committee meetings this evening, so ignore this slide, but if you are on a committee, maybe reach out to your chair and see when they meet next. But that is all I have. So thank you for joining us. You're welcome to hang out. I don't know if there's a social after the meeting. If someone wants to arrange one, I'm sure people will join. So thank you.